Are ghosts real? Several recent encounters suggest there might be more things in heaven and earth than we can dream of.
So are werewolves just a Hollywood creation, or do half-man, half-wolf creatures really exist? Now, tonight, we kick off our Conspiracy Theory Month series, which was a...
The legend of the vampire actually goes back for centuries, and it exists in some form or another in almost every culture. In fact, some people believe the first vampire story was in the Bible.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along.
Try and clear up an ancient mystery with the help of a prominent veterinarian who says she can prove that Bigfoot exists and that he's related to all of us.
New reports, 5 pilots coming forward over the weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects.
And good evening, folks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Celestial Oddities PairOfNormal Guys podcast radio show. As always, I am your host, Garrett Jagaman.
And my name is Daniel James.
And we have a great episode planned for you tonight. I'm not going to jump into that just yet. I want to make you wait for it. But if you do listen to our show, you know that we bring you 2 to 3 episodes per month on both sides of the show, both PairOfNormal Guys podcast and Oddworld, both under the header of Celestial Oddities. The difference between the two sides of the show is, PairOfNormal Guys, tonight's episode is Daniel James and myself picking specific topics and subjects and diving deep into them, giving our theories and thoughts on those, such as inner Earth civilizations, shadow people, sleep paralysis, Sasquatch, and much more. The other side, Oddworld, is where we do take on phone calls from all over the world to listen to people's encounters and experiences with the supernatural and paranormal. Now, something we have been wanting to get into for quite a while, and something I'm a little bit more geared to doing on my other show, Uncovering the Underground, that I run, is doing interviews on this show with great personalities and influential people in the supernatural and paranormal realm. And tonight we certainly are kicking that off with a bang with a wonderful guest in Tim Shaw. And we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about Tim here in just a moment. If you are listening out there, make sure you click the like, share, and follow buttons on whatever platform you are listening to us on, whether it be Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, you name it, we are on it. If you click those buttons, it helps move us up the podcast community rankings, as well as keeps you in the loop as far as, when we're releasing new content. Make sure you check out all of our, present episodes, past episodes, and future episodes to come. We are always bringing you great content. We do want to thank our sponsors, Cryptid TV. You can check them out both on YouTube and Facebook. They are a great community where people can get together, network, share theories and ideas of the supernatural, and just a one-stop shop for every kind of bizarre thing out there. And you can talk amongst, each other without the worry of people thinking you're a nut, like, most people think that we are. So it's a great home for all of us into the supernatural. So please make sure you check them out. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I would like Dan to kind of start this out, tell us how he met Tim, and, we'll go ahead and start interviewing Tim. Now, before we do that, if you're not familiar with Tim's work, Tim is, a very well-known paranormal investigator, author, consultant on many different TV shows and movies. He's been on several TV shows. He is a photographer and just a spiritualist, psychic medium, and so much more. This guy does it all, and we're very excited that he's taken time out of his schedule to come with us tonight and journey into his mind a little bit and share with us a little bit about his past and about what he's getting into these days. So, Dan, why don't you tell us how you met Tim, and then we're going to go ahead and jump right into it.
Yeah, guys, listen, I'm very excited to have Tim on the show tonight because not only is he so renowned in his field, but he's also a personal friend of mine. So what I would like to do is just kind of let you guys know how we met and the significance that Tim has in my life, and then we're going to go ahead and start picking his brain. Tim and I had met about 7 years ago. In 2013, my girlfriend at the time was on the TV show Ghost Hunters Academy. And from being on the show many, many years ago, she'd become a little bit of a public figure in that way in the para scene. And so she was a guest oftentimes at various conventions and public investigations. I would always come with her to those events. Well, at one of those many, many events, there was one of them in, I believe it was Youngstown, New York. her table was placed right next to Tim's, and her and Tim had already known each other from working together in this field. And I believe that's how we met, was at that convention, and she had introduced us, and he was very nice to me. I knew a little bit of him through her, and then researched his work, and so I was a little bit starstruck at the time. I was like, whoa, our table's right next to him. This is super cool. And he was very nice. He gave me like some of his, handed me a bunch of merchandise, and it was really cool sitting next to him and getting to know him that day. And even though we had met through my partner at the time, Tim and I had actually just connected and developed our own friendship. And then it was still right around those same years, 2012, 2013, 2014. I was going through what I call my spiritual awakening, and I was getting really into metaphysics and spirit science. And Tim was somebody who was already very well versed in those areas where it was all very foreign to me. And Tim was somebody that I could come to and sort of ask questions or bounce theories on back and forth when I was so excited to learn about all these new things that I could use as tools and have a better understanding of. And I could mention something to Tim over dinner, and he knew right away what I was talking about and then could sort of go into those concepts. And for me, anybody who comes into something new that they're very excited about, we're always grabbing at new information and looking for people who can help us. And Tim was there at that time, which was very important to me. And so Tim and I have actually maintained a friendship over these years, and we've collaborated on projects, and we can go into more about that later. But guys, Tim is here with us right now. And Tim, what I want to do real quick is just tell you a little bit about what this particular show means to me. And I think that you'll understand when I tell you, when Garrett and I came together to do this paranormal podcast, I don't do anything without a specific reason. And my main goal with this podcast is to not only share stories on the paranormal and the esoteric, but to collect stories from our listeners. And what Garrett and I want to do as partners is we want to make some kind of key that can connect the dots, from firsthand experiences all over the world that we can then use to find some sort of common thread between and see if there's a bigger cause and a bigger meaning to all of the esoteric and the paranormal experiences and occurrences that people have. Garrett and I are going to be making a log of people's reportings and under what circumstances they happen to them, where they live, what they were going through at that point in their life. And I do believe that we can start to shape a bigger picture on something that I know you are far, far more well-versed in than I am. And that is my personal goal for Celestial Oddities. And we just genuinely appreciate you coming to be here with two guys who are relatively new to running a podcast. And one thing I'll give you guys a little hint on is Tim was podcasting before podcasting was called podcasting. Okay, the guy goes way back. Okay, and I'm still relatively new to this, and I think that you're really going to be able to help us in a lot of ways, Tim. And so I'm very fortunate to call you a friend. I'm very grateful to have you on the show tonight. That being said, let's formally get Tim Shaw in the airwaves. Tim, Garrett, guys, jump in here.
Oh, man, I don't know who you were talking about. I'm just that kid from Chickawaga, you know what I mean? Chickawaga, New York. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you, Dan. It's funny, but we dance on this earth for just, for so long, and the connections that we make are not by accident. And we're all here to learn from each other, and sometimes, people come in and out of our lives with, really, it's like, well, it doesn't matter if we see each other or not. But like, it was so great. I remember it was when we first met was at Old Fort Niagara, right, at the Paracon there. And I to this day, I can't believe, that we really struck up a friendship, and then you moved away, and we still, even though we didn't keep in regular touch, we always still, once in a while, you'd shoot me a line or I'd shoot you a line. And it was just so great to be able to go and maintain it. And that's when we first did the Curiosity. We were doing the little video show, my very first video show. And may I tell everybody out there that, I am not a child of the digital age. I am definitely not. And Dan walked me through so much of the editing and so much of what I needed to know about working with video. And off the air, we had mentioned this a little bit because I work for I shouldn't say I work. I volunteer. I don't want to work anymore. I retired. But I volunteer at a little community cable TV network. And I produce now, or I crew on 5 not-for-profit shows. And, if it wasn't for Daniel James, I don't think I would have had the courage or the nerve to be able to do that, to learn camera work, to sit down and learn editing, to sit down at a board. And I'm working, it's amazing because when I'm directing, I got 3 static cams on the floor, and I have 7 RoboCams, and Daniel, if you had told me, I don't know how many years ago that I'd be doing that, you're out of your mind, man. You're on crack. There's no way I would do any of that stuff. But
and look at you now,
look at me
I was
now.
happy. I was happy to help you in any way that I could because, Tim, we were genuinely friends.
Yeah,
that we met.
Yeah, we were right from the beginning. And I remember you were wearing a tie, a white shirt and a tie at
I was
at the Paracon, and you stood out because I don't know anybody that wears a tie at a Paracon.
leave it to Daniel James to show up, flossing his white shirt and tie. I believe it. And you said something.
Styling.
He was styling. And as you said, you guys struck up a friendship right from the beginning. And I don't think that there's a way most people out there could meet Daniel and not strike up a friendship right away. Me and him met each other, as a commissioned videographer for a music video for my artist side of things that I do, and instantly became friends as well. So it's been a long friendship. It's been a great, fruitful friendship. And obviously me and you, Tim, are first meeting each other tonight, and I'm thankful of that. And hopefully we can spark up a friendship as well. I think we have some things in common, as we were talking about a little earlier.
Absolutely.
With the paranormal side, I know that me and Dan travel different paths as far as things that we research. We're community. I can't talk. We're collectively together into the same things, but Dan focuses more on the cryptid and alienistic side. I focus more on the paranormal and ghost side, and I know that me and you certainly have that in common, as we were talking about earlier, and because of your past. So, like I said, very, very happy to have you on tonight, and I look forward to picking your brain on certain things of past, present, and future for sure.
Awesome. And the big thing that everybody has to understand is that, our communities and our society likes to go and draw lines. They like to put everybody in neat little boxes. And, in this, what we do is like you have ghost people and you have cryptid people, and then you have all your energy people, and you have this and that. When you sit down, and again, I've been doing this since time immemorial. I think I got my first information from Moses when he came back down with the tablets. But the one thing that I found is everything is interconnected. Everything is, if you learn about one thing, you can kind of carry that on, because what I learned in the spiritualist side, when I was really working hard and taking my classes in Lilydale and serving all the churches I did, is that everything becomes energy. And when you start looking into all your spiritual healing, and you start working into your cryptic side, a lot of that is energy. A lot of that is not just stumbling into Bigfoot or the Dogman or anything. It's all energy. A lot of it is all energy. And then when you start, and I've been blessed, man, because I get a chance to hang with some crazy people. My one good friend is Utu. He's actually a witch doctor. He's trained in New Orleans. I know people in the Santeria religions. I know people in so many of the pagan, the different pagan religions. But I also know people that are Pentecostals and hardcore Christians. And the bottom line is everything is so interconnected. When I teach a class, I always say, first thing I want you to do is throw out your prejudice, because of the fact that everything is interconnected. Never throw the baby out with the bathwater, because you never know how it's going to feed in someplace. And I think that by following that, that philosophy, I think I've been pretty successful, because, I kind of get invited to all sorts of wonderful things. I've been out in, the Allegheny National Reserve, wandering around, looking for cryptids. I've been I was out at the Hinsdale house, one of the major hauntings here in Western New York back in the 70s, when they were going to tear it down, and we went out there to video it and photograph it for posterity, and how that has evolved and all the experiences I've had out there. Everything is so interconnected. I mean, Reiki healing, working with the natural laws, how everything works, how by putting things out there you can manifest, how working with the natural laws you can turn around and change your destiny, and you can turn around and take that energy and tweak it so that things just seem to work. And I think it's most poignant. And I know Daniel knows this. I had some problems. I had like 7 bladder surgeries and chemo and all that. And I always remember one time, and they never told me about this. Never told me. One time, and I can't even remember what show I was hosting. I can't remember that far back, but a bunch of listeners got together, and they across the world. We were pretty worldwide then, and a bunch of listeners got together, and they kind of had we're going to send healing to Tim at this time when I was walking in to the hospital. Let's say 5 o'clock in the morning, I had to be there, and no matter where they were, they changed. They got up and they worked within their time zones so that it would be 5 a.m. my zone. And even my wife said, we walked into the hospital and I was going in for the surgery, and I was pretty sick. And you know what? It was like, oh my God, it was the most unbelievable feeling of calm, and everything was going to be all right, and everything really worked out. So that taught me that it doesn't matter. Everything is energy. Intent is energy. Thoughts are things. We are all creatures of energy. We are all vibrating. Everything around us vibrates. And when we look at the paranormal, what do you think a spirit is? I'm not of the old vein. It's funny because whenever I do gallery work, I always say I'm not. If you ever went to a spiritualist church, listen, guys, I'm not your grandmother's, gallery worker. And it's because I kind of looked at it as I took the physicality out of spirit, the individualism out of spirit, and I kind of inserted that everything was not a personality. It was the essence of personality. It was the vibratory remains of that of that soul, of that personality. And that I started thinking about it in that sense, all of a sudden, so much more started to open up. So much more became. Well, I'll just say it was almost like an epiphany. It was like I became enlightened, and I understood everything. And I understood why we do ritual and why we do different things. But I also understood that the basis of everything is vibration. And, when I started thinking about it in that sense, I started getting more evidence. I started getting more reactions. And I'm a dowser, so that's huge. That you work with a lot of vibration with that, a lot of intent. All of a sudden, everything became clearer, and like attracts like, man. All of a sudden, next thing you know, natural law kicks in, and I'm meeting this person, and I'm meeting that person, and they're inviting me to this ritual, and they invite me to there, and you got to come and check us out in Canada, And I got a chance to see the private Niagara Voodoo Temple, which is in the home of my good friend Utu, and it was something to see. It was amazing. All of a sudden, I got an opportunity to go down to New Orleans to work down there and act, and it just happened that I had a whole Sunday to myself that I could wander all the shops of New Orleans. Things work out when you put the vibration out there, and that is amazing to me. So. And the one thing that I will say that's really important, and Dan, and I'm sure Garrett, what the importance of this is that at my age now, and I'm 62 now, is that for the longest time I lost my childlike wonderment. When we were kids, everything was wonderful. Everything was amazing, Even though you could explain it away, it was amazing. It was like that magician, that illusionist that came up there and did this crazy-ass trick, and you're like, oh my God, this is great. And you lose that, and society beats it out of you. But when we start working with energy, we start looking at vibration, we start looking at abstracts, all of a sudden that childlike wonderment comes back. And boy, when it comes back, it's what makes life worth living in the long run. I mean, everything becomes better. So that's enough. I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, I think you nailed it, right on the head, that once you start looking at the paranormal or anything, cryptids, it doesn't matter, as energy, and like you said, like attracts like, and if you put yourself on certain frequencies and wavelengths, you do start to experience it in a different light, because you have a lot of people that go out there with a spirit box or an audio recorder, and they're just there, I want to see a ghost, I want to see a spirit. They might still have great experiences. They might still have some type of profound encounter. But whenever you start to look at it, that it is really, take, for example, a tuning fork. You hit that tuning fork, it leaves off a vibration. It's going to last for quite a while. That is what a spirit is. It's the vibration left over from life, whether it be a human life, whether it be something from a different dimension. There's some type of reverb coming from this vibration, and if you can kind of get in tune with that vibration, you match one another in harmony, and you will start to notice more sounds, more movement, more connection. So there are ways to sharpen your blade to really be able to cut through what most don't see, and really come in tune with that, as you said. So I believe in that
Absolutely.
firmly. I think that's something that's really changed my life over the years, and gave me back the childlike wonder, because I've been involved in the paranormal for over 15 years as far as investigating and being a part of this side. And for the longest time, it was really just, going out and, will you answer me? Is there someone there? And that's great. I still do that in my practice, but I have learned to channel, I've learned to meditate and put myself at a higher or a lower frequency to match what it is that I'm trying to communicate. And I heard that on another show that you were on at one point, you were talking, people like to refer to the term demons. And I use it because that's what people, they understand that term. But I don't really think of the word demon as being a real thing. As you mentioned yourself on another podcast, was that demons are really just a lower frequency being of another sort. They're not necessarily evil. They're not necessarily a demon. They're just a lower vibrational frequency.
Exactly. I worked with an exorcist, with a bishop. He was a bishop with the Western Rite Catholic Church, and we would sit there and argue over, well, what do you call a demon? And one day he said, well, what do you think a demon is? And I'm going, well, I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I want to take the personality away from it. And I want to just say it's a lower vibration, and it could be something that's natural, or it could be a personality that is, because we don't lose our free will. We don't lose our will when we die. That's one thing that, people don't realize. And it could be something that, just is full of hate, full of anger. And he goes, well, that's what we call demons. And the spiritualist religion that I'm part of the National Spiritual Association of Churches again. And one thing that I was taught right from the beginning was they don't believe in angels. They don't believe in demons. Everything is, vibrational base. Everything is, well, they have more personality base, but you have to be able to go. And if you think about it as energy, Johnny Zaffis, who's a great friend of mine and taught me, I'm blessed because I get a chance. I've hung out with some of the greats, and we're sitting in a bar room just talking shop, which is amazing to me. Again, it just blows my mind. I've met these people, and I learned how to ascertain locations and look for the energy source. What's feeding into this vibration, this negativity, what's going on in this house. And if you can short circuit that, all of a sudden, boom, it stops. And most times the energy is the actual person there that's being afflicted. And it's a re-education process. It's a rewiring of their thought processes. And that in itself creates a different vibratory nature. And that different vibratory nature slowly dissipates whatever's going on in that location. I mean, you can, I'll be honest with you, I can go to a location, I can cleanse the location. 2 days later, whatever it is tormenting the people again. So it's not up to me to truly 100% change the location. It's up to me to find out what's feeding into it. And if it is the person itself, to re-educate that person so that they can change their thought patterns and they can go and live a better life. What you're doing, my mentor, Sharon Klingler from Ohio, she is probably the greatest mediumship teacher ever. I mean, I learned so much from her. I took a 5-day intensive advanced mediumship class with her, and it was just pushed me to whole new levels and really opened my eyes to so many things. And whenever I had a question, she always took the time to answer it. But it was her that taught me about empowering the person. If we can empower people, let them have control back. It's like having cancer. Cancer patients, what really destroys a cancer patient is not so much the disease itself, which is really bad, and it does do so much damage. But it's your will to live. It's your will. It's how you look at things, and to re-educate a person so that they can live a productive life while they're undergoing these treatments. That is, first of all, that's like one of your highest callings to do, but it gives them a better frame of mind. All of a sudden, you are now, instead of having all these negative vibrations, because thoughts are things, coming at you at 1,000 miles an hour, all of a sudden you're slowing this stuff down. And they say, and I can say from personal experience that it really does help, along with modern medicine and the positive outlook and empowering and taking control of your destiny, of your life. That is so important, especially in what they would quote demonic cases. And the other thing with demonic cases, I was on a panel with Johnny was moderating it, Nick Roth was on it, and a deacon was on it. I can't think, there was somebody else on it too. I can't remember. And we did it last year. And the question from the audience came up. There was two questions. One was a Native American gentleman that asked about things of that nature, of his traditions. And I can say without a doubt, you have to go and find somebody to work with that, to meet their expectations and their history that will help them. And 9 out of 10 times they will be able to go and re-educate that person. But I had a really neat question that came up, and it was like using the dark. Can you use the dark to dispel all this negativity and all that? And I've worked with shamans. And I'm going to tell you what, these people dip into the underworld, they go the overworld. I mean, these people are not afraid. And the big thing that I was always taught was that in order for you to go and understand the darkness, you've got to walk there. You can't be afraid of it. You can't be that. And I knew the late Ray Buckland, the guy that brought organized Wiccan religion here to the U.S. And he always said that you can't be a fuzzy bunny. You can't have it only one way. You've got to be able to go and not be afraid of walking in the darkness, walking with that negative vibration for a higher calling. I know my Christian friends be going, oh, no, that's foreboding. But I got to tell you that I've done it, and it's worked. And and to me, again, when we start looking at how everything is interconnected and we start looking at energy and how energy works, it makes perfect sense. So, you never know. But everybody's got their own way of doing things, of course. But that's just mine, and that's just like my opinion. And I can say that that's something that I felt is very, very, very strong. I mean, you can go and you can admonish in the name of Christ. You can do it in the name of Buddha. You can do it. And I've known people that have done it in the name of Satan and all sorts of other names and demons and all that. The idea is you have every situation is different. The energy is different. You have to adapt your way of thinking. You have to have the network out to have enough people who can walk in and adapt their way of thinking. You got to have the right person for the right client. And then you start working with the energy, and slowly but surely. So the names are only somatic. The title's only somatic. It doesn't matter what you call it. It doesn't matter who you're invoking. What matters is
Agreed, absolutely.
What's important is your belief in energy. There's your experiences, and that you're working for a higher cause. You're working for that higher cause. You're working to help that person. And I get ripped apart, which is part of the it's part of the gig. It's all part of, people disagree with me, but I can tell you the proof is in the pudding, and that works. It works great. But I will also warn that what I have is kind of rare, and I think it was I think a lot of it, I would have had a problem anyway, but I think the severity of it was a direct result of all the negative work that I had been doing. And I think that, and Johnny and the late Malachi Martin, who wrote Hostage to the Devil, they both talk about this, that the more that you work with these negative vibrations, that they will affect your body, they affect your mind. And Malachi Martin, in that book, wrote about how exorcists actually go and shorten their lifespans because of what they're working with. And I can also tell you that there's two locations that I've been to that the owners of these locations have been affected by the vibrations that are brought forth out of these locations. And they're not really nice, and there's personality changes and that sort of thing that you look for, red flags that you look for. And so, why did that happen? They were perfectly normal before they bought this location, or they're living in this location, and then it changes. And they don't want it to get better. They want to keep it like that because, of course, that's a revenue coming in. And you can see, they can't see what's going on. They can't see themselves from the outside, but we can see that. And you can see those subtle personality changes, and you can see all that and how it affects them in the long run. So yeah, you have to really be careful with it. But Johnny Zaffis was the guy that he really sat me down one day. And I probably in a couple hours, I learned more in those couple hours than I learned in my entire life about energy and working with negative impacts. And it's funny because I have a collection of haunted objects, and I have a couple kind of nasty ones. And people come up to me and they say, well, has this one, given you any trouble, or a former owner of the object, has this given you any problems? Because this used to go and do this, X, Y, and Z. And I'm going, geez, no. And they go, wow, really? I said, first of all, you got to understand, I love every piece I have. And, I do my little clearing thing on them. I send my positive energy into them, and I treat them as if they're beloved objects. All of a sudden, I don't have I have 7 foot lockers full of these things in my basement right now as we speak. And I have never, outside of like a little knocking on because I've got like 60, I got 2 Ouija boards that somebody sent me just before Christmas. So I think I'm up to like 64, wow. 65 Ouija boards. And outside of a little knocking once in a while with that, I get nothing. And as a matter of fact, one of the pieces, one lady asked me about it, and I said, I have no problems with it because of the fact that it has gone more places with me. I travel with this thing than my wife. So instead of being in this little house in the middle of in the country where it was affecting the atmosphere of it, it flies with me and goes all over the place. So I think it's happy because it's getting a world tour.
Well, that's great because, honestly, as you said, it's going to go off of the energy and outlook that you have towards the objects, the same as a homeowner's outlook. That's the most important thing. You can go in and you can investigate a home, you can cleanse a home, but if the mind of the person living there that's being tormented or affected is not able to be cleansed, or they're not able to have a different outlook on how they see life and they see the atmosphere around them, then it doesn't matter how many times you clear that home, it's going to come back. And I actually have a case like that right now. I have a pretty dark investigation coming up on a gentleman. He's been sending me evidence and talks with me that there has been a very severe and noticeable change in his mood and his personality. He has snapped pictures of this entity, And it's pretty intense, but you can notice it's changing his mentality. And one of the first things I plan to do whenever I go there is to sit with him and talk with him and try to get on a one-on-one basis with him and let him know that in order for things to change around him, he has to change his outlook. So,
exactly.
If he's able to do that, that's half the battle. Then we can worry about finding, as you said, the epicenter of the energy, why it's there, what's happening, the circuit, and disconnect that circuit, cleanse the home. But that's one of the most important things. But just as you said with the items you have, it's all about the energy and power that you give it. If you keep a powerful and positive outlook towards it, it's not going to affect you. But if you constantly think of it, oh no, this Ouija board or this item is going to cause darkness in my home and bad things to happen, then you open up the doorway. And that's what a lot of people do is, there's spirits. Let's use an example, a tunnel. Spirits and entities are flying through this tunnel rapidly all around you. When you look at that negatively and have such a low, presence to yourself, you open up a little wormhole to that, and as they're flying by, one spots that, and boom, he flies in, and now he's connected with you. So if you keep that positive outlook, folks, you won't have to worry about these things. So anybody listening out there, if you ever experience or you are experiencing any type of dark energy of any sort, don't necessarily label it as a demon. It's partially what's going on with yourself. Keep positive, and stay at a high frequency, and you can help to eliminate these problems. Because as Tim and I both said, I don't necessarily believe in demons. I have, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know how you want to look at that, have come into contact with so-called demons. I've actually had some pretty profound experiences with lower frequencies. And, Tim mentioned it as well. You've got to be careful with working with these type of things, because you can help people, you can have some pretty amazing experiences, but it's going to take a toll on you. It brings you down to that level, and it starts to eat away at your mind, starts to eat away at your body. So you have to be careful when messing with that. But, demons are a loose term, because if you go back to different stages of magic and King Solomon and the works of the Lesser and Greater Keys of Solomon, he would oftentimes channel demons to do positive work. In fact, he says in his book that he used their work to build the Temple of Solomon. So you can use them, but it's all about how you look at it. If you think they're going to come and do bad things, they probably are. You're giving them that bridge to do so. But if you stay positive and keep certain frequencies, you can work with dark energy in good ways. But understand, you can't sell your soul, as they say in movies. It's not able to be sold, but partially you are selling it, because the more that you work with it, it's going to slowly eat away at you, and that is what I would consider selling your soul.
Exactly. And here's the bottom line. When you start really working with it, you have to set boundaries. I set boundaries. It's like, this is the way I work. I have free will. But I also am trying to use as little common sense. I was never born with common sense, so I'm not gonna go and say that I have a lot of it. But this is just as an example, the Zozo phenomena. My God, we were just up at for a charity event up at Hinsdale, and I brought out the Ouija board. I donated one of my Ouija boards up there to the house, and we're bringing it in, and the thing is kind of spelled my name, but it spelled it with a couple extra letters. So that's your first red flag. Okay, it may not be what it's appearing to be. Then I said, what's your name? And it spelled out XOXO. And I'm like, you listen, pal, you love and kisses. Now, that is called being in control of every spiritual situation that you come into. You must be in control. If you're not in control 100% of what's going on, that's your chink in the armor, and that's how you get into trouble. So I'm up there, and I said, what is your name? Don't give me this crap. I know. You tell me what your name is. And it spelled out Zozo. And about that point, I think I felt like 6 to 10 people's butts pucker up, because they were just like terrified when that came through. And I ended the session, because I am the voice of what's going on. I am the conduit. I have the free will to shut this thing down. Where people don't think like that. People are, and as well as I do. How many times do paranormal investigators love to get FUs? Oh my God, people love getting FUs and sworn at and all that. I don't put up with it. I don't put up with that. And if you don't want to talk to me, I don't really care. This is the bottom. I don't care what you do. I'm in control. You have to work by my standards. You have to work by my rules. Because if you don't work by my rules, you don't get communication.
And that's it. Is you want to communicate with me, I'm willing to communicate with you. But if you want to be difficult, I'll end transmission right now, and it's not going to hurt me because there's always more spirits and entities that'll want to come across and work by my standards. If you want to be the bastard that keeps things difficult, then I'll end transmission right now, and you can go back to the void that you're in and remain there. So you do certainly have that control.
And people don't get that. People don't understand about control. When I teach mediumship 101 and that, it's so hard to get people to understand that they're the ones that are in control, not the other side. The other side needs you to be that contact point to come through. And early on, Spirit, I was told by Spirit and by countless teachers that Spirit is hungry for that two-way communication. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to research this a little bit more. And I started looking at the Zozo phenomenon. I started looking at the possession phenomena. And I started realizing that you have to give permission. It sounds like something like Dracula. In order for Dracula to come into your house, you have to give him permission to come in. It's the same thing. You have to go and give permission to this essence of energy, this maybe essence of negative energy, to either use your body as through transform or what we would call temporal possessions or whatever to follow it. How many times have we heard all these horror stories about people going, well, the Ouija board told me to do X, Y, and Z. Well, my basic saying is, if your Uncle Joe died and comes back and says through a Ouija board or through a medium, whatever, take all your money out of the bank, I want you to invest it in this because it's a sure thing. Well, if you go back far enough, you start seeing the newspapers are full of articles like this. Here's the facts. If your Uncle Joe never worked a day in his life, didn't know anything about stocks, had no money, lived over a liquor store in the east side of Buffalo here, don't take stock tips from him. What are you, crazy? But I
like that point because they do. Really? People believe that because it's coming from the spiritual plane that it's like the divine word of God. No, it's just the echoes and talks of someone that was here. As you said, if someone was a prick in real life, chances are in the afterlife they're going to continue to be that prick.
They haven't changed that much. Exactly.
And people don't look at it like they're like, oh, I got the divine word, during my investigation. No, you got a communication, and that's great. That's the first part of it, but you got the communication with someone that's probably the same person they were in life. Now, if it's someone coming through, it's an Elon Musk. Now, obviously he's still here, but if you're getting advice from someone like that in the spiritual world, maybe you want to listen. But if you're getting it from Joe Schmo down the street, there's a good chance you probably want to ignore that advice because it's just as if your neighbor was whispering something to you. It might not be the best advice.
Well, here's the other thing: spirits lie. Spirits will lie. You get something that you get that essence of personality that comes through. I never take anything at face value. The late Ray Buckland always said, ask the question 3 times to see if you get the same answer. But you have to change the question up so that it's tricky. And if you get the same answer, there's a good chance that you're actually in communication with what it says it is. But if you start getting like different answers, of course not. This is not who it is. Someone on the other side is just trying to communicate or whatever. So you've got to be really careful with that. Again, people don't realize it. People take everything as like, oh my God, this is like unbelievable. This is, omnipotent. I have now, I'm now into the universe, this universal state of knowledge. And in all reality, it is just the memories that are resonating within the essence of that energy. So people have got to be very careful with that, and people just have to realize that you can't be afraid. And we talk. I also teach about different types of spirits, and they're it's more of like a personality thing. You have parasiticals that will go there and like try to scare people and try to, raise that energy so they can gorge themselves on that energy. They can absorb that energy. Alcoholic or addictive spirits who like attracts like, they'll find someone who has a highly addictive personality who may be on the edge and sort of influence them. And I always call it the whispers in the ears, to go and to do more so they can, while their body can't absorb the actual chemicals that are going and coursing through this person's veins, psychologically they can get that high from it. So people don't have to realize that, there are people, the spirit world is just like our real world, the mundane world, because we have all these people out there that, we have great people and we have not so great people. Spirits are the same. We have great spirits and we have, not so great spirits. So it's up to us to, to really sort them out and use our common sense. And the other thing is you can't have fear. If you're going to do this work, you can't have fear. Some of the locations that I go into have been really bad. And you always get one person that really wants to do this stuff, and so you bring them with you, and it's always a mistake because they're terrified, and then they go home and they got they're claiming they got an attachment, and it's histrionics is what it is, and you don't need that. You can't be afraid of what we're doing. You know what? I'll tell you the truth. I mean, I don't like working in the dark. I really don't. That's just the way I am. It's the way I'm built. I always have some kind of a light on. First of all, this way nobody is cheating. There's no sleight of hand. I mean, use red light or blue light or whatever. But also, you got to make sure that I don't know how many times I've gotten a bang on the wall that I just come off my chair going, "Holy crap! What was that?" That's oh my God, where it startles me. Yet I'm not afraid of the source of it. What startles me is the fact that there is something that happened. For every action, there's a reaction. My reaction is I jump up, or I have to go and change my Depends or something. It's just one of those things that that I can jump, but it doesn't mean that I'm not in control. It doesn't mean that I fear it. It just means that I was startled. And too many people get those two confused. And then you've got thrill seekers that treat these spirit entities as if it was a commercial haunted house, and they want to be thrilled, and they want this nastiness to happen to them, And I mean, I was at a public hunt where this kid was just just obnoxious, and he's, "You suck, you don't know what you're doing, blah blah blah." No problem, and nothing happened to him until about a day later, when things were starting to go on in his bedroom and where he lived, and he called up and said, "You guys let me get you sent this with me," or whatever. It's like, dude, you treated this you didn't treat this properly. You treated it like you went to the show. You treated it like it was a merry-go-round or a circus. This ain't a circus. This is real life. When we do this work, we must be serious about it. We can laugh and we can joke, but the bottom line is we're serious with what we do, especially in negative cases or I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty serious with it in everything I do, from a reading, going through that to clearing a house to Reiki healing to anything. I'm very, very serious, and I always tell my students that the client, whoever you're working with, you're actually working for. And at the time that you're working there, they're the most important person in your life at that time. And you do not do anything to hurt them, and you don't do anything to go and cause harm or amp up the situation, because we all know that sometimes, I don't know how many times I got calls for from homeowners. They had a group in there and they amped up the location so much that after they left, it was almost they couldn't live in the house because the stuff was going on. It was insane. And I've sent people, good friends of mine, to work with them and to clear the house properly and educate them to lessen everything that's going on. So it's got to be almost like a doctor, do no harm, but you have to know what you're doing. You can't jump into this half-cocked. And unfortunately, when you're first starting out, I mean, you should just do the public hunts or limited hunts, more public locations. But you need people, this is just my opinion, that you got to put some miles underneath your belt before you start doing residentials.
I agree 100%.
You don't want to go and cause any more harm, because again, you walk into a house sometimes and you can amp up what's going on 1,000%. I've been pushed and I've been prodded and I've been scratched pretty good over the years. And you don't want that to happen to the people who live there. It may already be happening. So you don't want to get it worse. I mean, I know people that have been gouged, not just scratched, but gouged, or that they wake up and there's somebody standing there looking at them, and it's like bang, and you can smell the feces and you can smell the sulfur and you can smell all that, and then all of a sudden it gets, it becomes more physical. And you don't want that to happen to them. So you got to be very careful. And a lot of times, unfortunately, I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about some groups that don't take this seriously. And that's something that, unfortunately, I don't know if I can teach that. I mean, it's more of when I teach mediumship, I dedicate one full day just to ethics, so people understand how to deal with it a little bit better, and what's expected of them and what you should and shouldn't do. And then after that, it's like, well, I can't hold their hands, but I'm hoping that they take a little bit of that with me, because I always feel that when I pass away and my energy is going to be absorbed, I always hope my energy is going to be absorbed into the everything, where I'm not going to have to, if you believe in reincarnation, have to come back or anything. I'm hoping this is my last gig here, But I mean, I don't have to kind of be like sent back here or called on the carpet or whatever, because I didn't teach these. I didn't teach, someone who is starting their journey correctly. I didn't give them the ethics of what is safe, what's not safe, what really is expected of them, and about and how to help other people.
Well, that's
important.
Let
me jump in here. Let me cut you off real quick. I just want people to really, really hear what he just said. The first step in his teachings is ethics. How important and how overlooked that is in everything that one could do or invest time in or get involved with, is the ethics of it, or a core fundamental value for something so important like the work that we do in this field. So thank you for saying that. Continue.
Well, two things real quick. Sorry, Tim, I didn't mean to jump in there. Two things that you said that I really resonate with is the fear and also the ethics. As Daniel just mentioned, is ethics are important, because I will absolutely not allow someone to either be on my team or join my team on an investigation if they are the type that try to stir the pot by going in and saying, you have no power, show me what you can do, F this, F that, and they're trying to excite it with anger and with hostility. That is not the way that I do an investigation. As soon as someone does that, you're cut instantly. We will never work again, together. At public investigations, as you said, sometimes you have no choice. There's people that are doing that, and I'll steer clear of them. But as soon as I see someone taunting the spirit, being disrespectful, I automatically get away from them or do not work with them. Same as I do not, I actually last night, ironically, I'm doing a big investigation coming up, and I did, hey, we have a few spots aside from my team for anybody that does want to come to this investigation. Message me, and I'd be glad to share, the details with you. I had a girl said, I would love to come and do that investigation. I was there once before. I will do the entire investigation except for the one wing of the building. Absolutely not. And I said, why is that? She says, it terrifies me. I will not go to that side of the building. I said, well, thank you for your inquiry, but we can absolutely not have you come. I will not allow someone into the building who automatically off the bat shares with me that they are terrified to be there, because it is okay to be startled. I had a situation recently in that exact building, and we're going back, where I watched a hospital bed violently shake in front of me, full-blown just shaking. And it startled the hell out of me, but it did not scare me. And that's the big difference, is you can get startled. Something can bang and you jump and say, oh, hell, what the hell is that? But if you have a fear and you're like, oh, my God, I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to be here, then you are in the wrong field. Go home and watch it on TV, because you do not have a place here. And just like you said with homes, that is the biggest thing, is this is not meant for everybody in general, but home investigations are meant for the elite. 95% of the people out there doing paranormal investigating should never walk into someone's home and try to help them, because as you said, stirring the pot in someone's home might be fine and dandy when you go climb in your car and drive home at the end of the night, but then people have to live there. That is their sanctuary. That is their home. And if you piss this thing off, they are the ones that have to reap the repercussions of that, and people don't get that. And you have to know how to handle it, because as we said, there are lower vibration entities out there, and it might not be as simple as, okay, now they're a little bit more active and banging more doors. You piss off something like a shadow person or something from another dimension that is already very angry and very, very dark. This could be physical harm to this person. This could be death to this person when they get pushed down the stairs. So, you have to be very careful out there. Anyone doing paranormal investigating, listening out there, please think before you go out and get into someone's home. Yes, it's fun to go out and investigate. Go to a public place and do public investigations. Go to graveyards, cemeteries, places in your town that are known to have haunted. But whenever someone's putting out there, hey, I have a horrible dark entity in my home and I need help, unless you have been doing this for many, many years, unless you have spent thousands of hours of reading and research and hands-on training, do not enter someone's home and think that you can help them.
No, it's funny about when you brought up about the whole idea of provoking. There is a time and a place, and I don't recommend it, but you have to know what you're doing. Now, I will provoke if we have time constraints and it's a bad case. So
agreed.
And I'm not one of these people. Once in a while I will, and I know this is something that I got from the exorcist that I worked with, was that they want, if the so-called demon, to say who it is, if it's a lesser demon or it has the name, the whole thing, and they will push hard. And with me, I'm going to go and I'm going to go and needle it as much as I possibly can. If I'm not getting a response, and I still feel as a medium that there is something negative there, I want that response so I can tell whether it's coming from the person or it may be coming from one of my team members. I want to know. So by doing a limited and very careful provoking, that will work. That will help you a little bit. The other thing is you should never go and say, hey, use my energy if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. That's a big thing right there.
Oh, my God.
I don't know how many times I've been in investigations, public or elsewhere, and someone's like, it is okay to use all the energy from me that you want. And I'm standing back and I'm like, oh, man, again, you just made a mistake.
I do it because
but you know what you're doing.
I sit and I go and I clarify it. I speak. Now, always remember one thing, voice vibration is strong. So that's why I always use voice vibration rather than the Svengoolie thing, where, you're shooting it out of your head, And my thing is that you can use my energy, but you can't deplete me. That's the way it works. That's your boundary. And many times when you have an essence of personality that is in crisis, that will give them just enough energy to let you know what's going on or give you that clue. That's what it's there for. But I don't recommend it. And I conduct seances and I teach seance. And I will, if I have an experienced group of sitters, we don't even think twice about it. It's like, use our energy, but you can't deplete us. We want to put that energy in the sink, use it, come on, and you bring it up and you raise your voice and the energy starts going up. It's like the Philip experiment with the with table turning, and it works. But every one of us is experienced. I will never do that with a group that has never been doing it before.
Well, that's because it's like giving a loaded gun. If you give a gun to someone who's an experienced practitioner of firearms, then they know how to use that gun. You don't have to worry as much. But if you hand a loaded gun to someone who's never seen or held a gun before, that just thinks it's cool and wants to mess with it, there's a good chance they're going to shoot themselves with it. And that's exactly what this is. It's Russian roulette. When you go in with no experience, you've watched a couple TV shows, so now you're automatically a professional. And let me tell you, folks, I'm sure Tim can attest to this as well. a lot of what you're watching on TV, I wouldn't exactly go to the bank with that. A lot of it is doctored and not exactly how real paranormal investigation is. So when you go into a home or you go to a building and you're like, I know what I'm doing. I've watched 6 seasons of such and such. You know nothing, and you shouldn't play with things you don't understand. Go in slow, go into a public investigation, learn the tricks of the trade before you go in and think you know something because of the teachings of someone on a television show. You need to have hands-on experience because, as Tim just said, there are ways of doing things and things that he might do that you do, but you're doing it wrongly and opening up yourself to possible harm. When you have a strong mind and you are of a meditative mind, that's the difference. As someone who meditates, someone who knows themselves in and out, knows the energy fields around them, can play with that safely. When you've never done any of the witch that I just mentioned, you have no protection of yourself. You are a wide open door for someone to walk right through.
Exactly. And people don't get that. And that's a whole other show.
It is. It really is.
TV. Because I remember I had done a pilot and I was telling Daniel about it and how, and these were all, the crew all worked for National Geographic in the past. And I expected so much from them and they faked stuff. I couldn't believe it. And I remember they had one of the guys that was a friend of mine. They told him, and he actually said, "Well, I'll go talk to Tim. He won't hit me." I got up and I was walking back to the hotel, and it was a good walk. And I was walking, I was leaving, and they were like, "Oh, they came back, and I had a big powwow on a conference call and this whole thing, and I never prayed so much that a project would tank. I'm going to be honest with you. I knew it was just crap. I hated what they did. I think we filmed probably 6 or 7 4-day weekends, and for this pilot and get it all done. It was, and I've got a copy of it, of the pilot, and it's really slick and it's nice, and it never went anywhere. And I prayed because I knew if they were going to go and they were going to fake the pilot, I knew that they were going to fake the show itself. I knew it. And I can tell you right now that I would say 25% of a lot of the things that we see on TV, like especially physical phenomena, movements and all that, can be faked.
I agree with that fully. I think a lot of it is.
You really have to take this as, and of course, I've worked with paranormal investigators that had many speakers in their sleeves and an iPod, and they were asking questions, and they would keep their recorder next to their sleeve, and all of a sudden they got this fantastic EVP. So you have to really watch it. And again, that's why you don't do anything in the dark. You always have some kind of light on, red, blue, usually, because that's traditionally, those are the two, green too. Those are the traditional colors that really won't affect spirit, because there's a lot to do with natural light and how it'll affect the vibration, and I don't know how true that is.
I use red myself. I have a head cannon lamp that I use when I'm walking around buildings, and I keep the red on, that way it doesn't affect anything. And I've actually had very good results where I've been in a room with my flashlight on and nothing's happening, and I've turned the flashlight out and either went into full darkness on solo investigations. I do a lot of solos, or I turn the red light on and I'm like, you can go ahead and move now freely. I'm sorry for having the light on. And I've noticed either in the darkness or the red light, I get a lot of activity. But if I have a full-blown head cannon lamp on, nope, doesn't seem to happen. It's they don't want to be. They're willing to share things with you, but they usually don't want to be in the spotlight so much.
Well, traditionally, Reverend Robert Schuller from New Jersey, he does something that's called transfiguration, which is I'm kind of jaded. It was amazing. Transfiguration is where he goes and produces ectoplasmic vapors, or whatever you want to call it, and it mixes in with spirit vibration, and it creates a mask that goes over his face. And I'm thinking to myself, I saw it when I was a kid. I haven't seen it in 30 years. So I went to one of his demonstrations, and sure enough, it was miraculous. I had Visine. I kept putting it in my eyes so I didn't miss anything. I was blinking my eyes to, and this mask was still there. I was conscious of hypnagogic suggestion, and it was still there. But the big thing is that traditionally they will have two mediums sit on each side of him, and they act as a battery, like, where you would actually, like, your intent sends vibrations to them, and that kind of feeds into what he's doing. But if any light would come up, these mediums jump and stand in front of them. And traditionally, they said that mediums, when they were in trance, could be neurologically damaged with any kind of bright light or brief light, any kind of light. It just something with the circuits, it just doesn't connect right. It really, and they, I was told, of course, I'm not sure how true this is, because there was a golden age of fraud, we know, in the mediumship field. It could kill someone. I do know that myself, being in a trance and having somebody do a flash that didn't know any better, it did disturb me, and I got a headache from it. So it could be, but you have to really watch that. So I think I love working with colors, but I'm a firm believer in never doing anything in the dark, because the old timers, and I first went into Lyceum, which is the Spiritualist Sunday School, in 1972. I don't know, I was 9 or 10 years old, and they were very careful, because not so long ago, from that time, the 50s, there was a lot of fraud. And we all look at, like, the William Mumler photographs, the spirit photography. We look at all this stuff, the sleight of hand. We read about how Houdini would go and expose these mediums. So it's very important that we never do anything in total blackness. And that's why I stress never, ever, ever have anything in total blackness. But I will say also, on the flip side, if we use a subdued lighting, I personally feel that I'm getting more connection. I'm getting a better, stronger EVP.
Well, let me jump in on that real quick, because I've actually studied it as well, and I haven't used it for the contact of, say, for example, ghosts or spirits, things like that. I've actually used it to enhance contact between extraterrestrials and higher dimensional beings that aren't necessarily deceased in a sense. You can use it to contact deceased relatives, absolutely, but this technique was taught to me, and it is absolutely effective. That if you sit in a dark room relatively in the center of it, you want to have some spacing between you and the walls around you, and you place a mirror in front of you, right? So that you angle the mirror so that you can see slightly behind yourself. And then the last piece in the toolkit is that you light a candle, or you can have a lantern or a flashlight or whatever it is that gives you dim lighting. That's why I jumped in when you said that, because it triggered the idea that dim lighting is actually far more effective than no lighting in pitch black at all. I don't know in terms of why it amplifies the connectivity and the energy between you and spirit, but it does create somewhat of a bridge. So if you can dimly see the room behind you or some space over your shoulder as you look into the mirror, this creates a portal in between you and spirit so that you can communicate with higher dimensional beings and other forms of what we would perceive as non-physical energy. And I just wanted to go ahead and jump in and add that I do resonate with the idea of low lighting and dim lighting, even up against no lighting at all.
Well, you can do the Gansfeld experiment with the ping pong. I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but the ping pong balls cut in half over your eyes with a red light shining on you, white noise playing through headphones, and you stare into the red light of the ping pong balls, the cup, and then you meditate. It can be absolutely fascinating because you connect, start to hear, see, feel things all around you. It's almost like you leave this plane of existence and travel to a completely different world, and it's fascinating. If you've never done it, I suggest it. It is very hallucinatory almost. A lot of people say it's just hallucinations, but I don't believe that, because there's been some experiences that I've experienced that is far beyond a hallucination. I mean, full-blown feeling something touching you and seeing it in front of you, it's pretty wild. And that's all done with red lighting, low lighting, and just white noise and meditation.
Tim, let me ask you, how do
Sure.
you feel? How do you feel about the concept of mirrors? And you don't have to even direct that answer towards the paranormal, but what is your general understanding in terms of, say, for example, the metaphysical perspective of mirrors and reflection?
Well, right now I'm doing a little study and a research. I'm actually building up a class on Victorian and post-Victorian grieving mores and what they would do, and superstitions behind it. And a lot of it revolves around mirrors. And they always used to say that mirrors will go and trap the soul if they're not covered properly or within a certain amount of time after someone passes away. Up until we became so, well, right now we live in a society that's run by time. So what we do now is we put so much emphasis on time. Up until that period, mirrors were the number one haunted objects. Those are the things that held the most vibration. Now it's clocks. Believe it or not, clocks have overtaken as being the most haunted objects.
Absolutely.
So that being said, mirrors are merely tools that I use for everything. I don't have a problem personally with mirrors because I use, as a matter of fact, here in my little office, I have a mirror in the window, and it's my intent that mirror will deflect anything negative that comes my way. And it keeps anything out that may be wanting to go and affect, my family or myself, and that's just that's something I learned from the craft. So it's positive things. I make and I teach all about the divination of black mirrors and how to use them, how to make them, how to use them as a tool of divination, how to go and you can use them for just about everything. You can use them for spirit communication. You can use them for precognition, retrocognition. I mean, you can use it for all this stuff. So mirrors to me are an important tool. I don't fear them. Now, I've taken your experiment just like one other step further, where I've actually had a larger mirror behind me. Okay. So as I'm looking into the mirror, I can see the back of my reflection, back of my head and my shoulders in that mirror. Now, there's also an experiment where there's actually a box of mirrors where you sit in a chair with low light. But I will tell you that it's amazing because, and again, I think we were talking about personal experiences a little bit earlier and how I feel that they're really so important to what we do. I can tell you that I have seen the vision of beings that may not be Earth-like looking back at me.
100%.
It's just an amazing thing. I wish there was some way, and I've set up a video camera, and of course, I mean, what I'm seeing is not through my eyes. I'm not seeing objectively. Basically, I'm seeing the form of what's going on subjectively in my mind. I'm seeing, I'm the antenna. I'm actually seeing this thing in the mirror, yet my video camera won't pick it up. And that's the problem. That's the big conundrum that any paranormal investigator runs into. So I chalk that up to something that actually happened. I think it's a great experience. It's a personal experience. Can I prove it? Absolutely not. But I can tell you that it really, it becomes an interesting addition to what we're doing. And I don't think, and it's funny, we were all talking about different things, different experiments, and a lot of people don't understand that all this stuff does not revolve. And again, I teach old school too. I teach new school, paranormal investigation, but I also teach old school, and I teach how to do things cheap, how not to have to go out and of course, I've got thousands and thousands of dollars sitting in Rubbermaid totes in my basement that I don't use anymore. And I go back to a lot of my basics, and a lot of people don't realize that this is something that can be done, and you don't have to go and spend a lot of money. Now, my biggest thing that I'm working on now, and I've worked, and it's a wonderful thing, and I really got turned on to this. I worked with Scott Porter from Wraith Chasers, who I love this guy, and his girlfriend Stephanie Burke, who's a unbelievable channel. She is a great channel. And we're in we were in Little Travis Bay, Michigan this year. So we were up in this one room, this haunted lodge, beautiful lodge, absolutely gorgeous. I had the greatest feel in this room, and we're all loaded in there, and they use a scanner box, and they pipe it into noise canceling headphones, and Stephanie had the noise canceling headphones on, and she had the blinders on. This is the Estes experiment. And we were getting some general stuff, and I'm like, with me, it's like, I'm pretty jaded with stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yawn. Oh, listen to this. Oh, all of a sudden it started calling my name. Okay. So it's coming through Stephanie, and it started saying, you know me. I said, I know you. Yes, she said. And I said, well, where would I know you? The house. And I'm like, okay, I've been in a lot of houses. I live in a house, big deal. I said, where did I see you in the house? And she said, the stairs. I went, okay. Is this a house that I've, that's special to me? She goes, yes. I saw you looking at me from the stairs. And she went on to peg about 9 things that nobody would have known. She certainly would have known it, not have known it. I mean, and what she was describing is when I was at the Hinsdale House in 2011, my friend Joe Piari and I went there to photograph it and video tape it because they were going to tear it down. And it's, and to me, it's a very, very important haunting in Western New York. They love to tear down their mythology. So I wanted to save this as the mythology of Western New York. And in the 1970s, it was a very haunted house. It was a big deal. And I've interviewed Clara Dandy, now Clara Miller, who lived in the house and experienced a lot of this stuff, and a couple witnesses. And finally I said, and I said to Stephanie, what letter does your name begin with? Real time L comes through. I said, is this Laura? She says, yes. Laura lived in the house, in the Hinsdale house in the 1970s. She was one of the daughters that Father Alphonsus Trabolt, who was a Jesuit instructor from St. Bonaventure University. As a matter of fact, he taught classes on the occult sciences. In 2011, we were there, and I was standing on these stairs, and I got this pull to look down, and I saw this teenage girl standing there, and her blouse was white polyester, and it had little either polka dots or pink, roses on there. She had bell bottoms on. This is how clear it was. I could, I saw her, one of her legs sticking out from behind this folding door with canvas sneakers on, and she was really pretty. She had a round face, a pretty smile. She had sun-bleached hair, and I thought it was just like a kid, maybe from, someplace close by that, saw some cars, and she came there on a dare. And I blinked my eyes, and she was still there. And I'm looking at her, and I got a little sound off to, I don't know if Joe made her sound or whatever, and I just moved my eyes, I looked back, she was gone. Came down the stairs, she wasn't in the house, she wasn't outside. There's no way that and this place is a farmhouse, and there's open land behind it. And then I realized it was November. We got Gore-Tex on. And, November in the southern tier of New York State is cold. And she just had this blouse on. And when I talked to Clara, she told me, you gave me a start. It sounds just like my daughter Laura. And Laura had committed suicide a number of years after they had left the house, after they were forced out of the house and they went to the West Coast. And I always remember that it was just something that I can't explain. It was something that just took my breath away. And for Stephanie, not knowing anything really around the house outside of my friend Dan, who owns it now and talks about it, but for my personal experience, right where, and again, there was 9 definite points that only I would know about. I mean, different things that I heard over the years or I experienced over the years. And something that I can't say right now because it's going to be on a Netflix special, but there's something particular that came out that only a few of us know about right now. This point, it was amazing. It was amazing. But people don't realize that it doesn't cost a lot to do this stuff. You've got to go back to basics. Go back to basics to understand how to work things. This is why I feel so blessed that I was brought up, the old way, through doing spirit rescue and working with spirit. And then slowly coming into this and coming up during a time when we didn't have K2 meters. And, I remember going out there with my cassette player, my cassette recorder, that's when I first made my first EVPs. And but you don't have to put out a lot of money for it. You can go back to basics. And by cutting a ping pong ball in half and shining you can get LED camera lights that have different filters on there. See what happens. See how you can connect. See what's going on.
Well, I'm really glad you said that because I know that you, as you said, are a practitioner of the old school and new school, and I know that for myself, all the gadgets and all the gear, especially these days, as shows and things have made paranormal activity and paranormal investigating much more popular, more mass production of equipment, lower prices, which is great. So you can obtain a lot of really cool gadgets. But I am a firm believer, as you said as well, is I'm not going to go in and believe everything's automatically paranormal. I'm going to be a skeptic of sorts, and I'm also going to go to my basics. I'm going to go off of personal experiences of what I see, feel, and hear, because I feel that some of the best evidence that you're ever going to gather is the evidence that you can't prove or show to anybody. It's what you experienced.
Exactly.
And you mentioned earlier prior to the show is that to me what matters. I don't care if I go to an investigation, tell you about my experiences, and you say, you have nothing to prove. I don't care. I don't need to prove anything to you. I proved it to myself. But going back to your basics is essential. And that was actually going to be one of my last questions before we wrapped up is, do you feel that with everything becoming more popular these days, more mainstream, and everyone with a ghost box and a flashlight and an audio recorder wanting to be an investigator, which, it's cool that people want to get in the field. I like seeing that. I promote it. But also I'm kind of jaded in a way that I don't like it because I hate to see everyone think that they're amazing at something that they watched on TV. Do you feel that it's been a good or a negative thing in the field of that? And do you feel that too many people are relying strictly on that equipment and not off their senses? Because it seems like people are just constantly using the ghost box. I actually, one of my last investigations I was at, it was a public one. I watched several people throughout the night as I passed them in different rooms. I never once seen them or heard them without their ghost box on and their audio recorder. And I'm like, that's great. But there's a time and place for that. I like to go into a room with absolutely no equipment on, not even a recorder, and sit myself, meditate for a while, and then see what interactions I get, and usually those are the best. So do you feel that that's kind of condemned some of the investigating out there, that people aren't really paying attention to their own intuition? And do you feel that we're in a better state of paranormal activity these days or investigating, or worse because of that?
It's a double-edged sword. Double-edged sword. I love the old school. I'm an old school dowser. I love doing that. I love dowsing. It's one of my favorite things. I have aura meters and bobbers and all this stuff. I mean, I learned from some of the old timers. It's fantastic what you can do with it. And again, that strengthens your belief and intent and energy. That being said, I love the new gadgets. However, you can't take them as gospel. You can't. I'm conservatively, I've got 9 scanner boxes. I've got 3 filter boxes that I use. Have I gotten in just unbelievable stuff? I had one out. My wife always knows when I'm doing the laundry because I usually have a box on. I have a scanner going just to play with it. And again, I'm a guy that I'm a firm believer, like the old timers. The tools that you use, you have to tune yourself to. You have to they have to become yours vibrationally.
Yes.
So, I always tell people sleep with your recorder underneath your bed. That will do it, so as you're working with it, the more you work with it, the more you're going to get. Now, I worked with this scanner box going, and as I'm working, I'm hearing "You Will Scream" underneath the frequency. Immediately, it's like, whoa, it's clear as day. I went and I tossed my recorder on. I said, yeah, I'm going to scream. What's going on? And I go, who's talking to me? And for about 5 minutes, I got real time back and forth conversation. It was amazing. However, you can't take everything to the bank. Everything that happens to you may have a scientific or organic, cause. So you have to be very jaded. You have to be careful. I was at a location, 10 of us, no power to this structure, 10 of us who had K2s or, trimeters or whatever, this thing, they just pinned. We were like, oh my God, this is like Spook Central. This is something out of Ghostbusters. Then I realized and I learned about how cell towers work and how sometimes this energy bounces. It's almost like acoustic echoes. You're hearing during the American Civil War, people 5 miles away from the battle couldn't hear the battle. Yet, people 20 to 50 miles away could hear the battle like it was in their backyard. That's called an acoustic echo. Same thing happens with cell towers and frequencies and that sort of thing. They can jump. It just happens. They can travel, and I believe, and somebody may have to correct me on this, because I for some reason I think they can go 100 miles or even more if you have the right conditions. I believe that's what happened up there. It had nothing to do with the house. It had nothing to do with the location. It had nothing to do with any kind of essence that was up there. It was something that was either naturally occurring or scientifically based. So people have got to be, I'm a true believer. I'd come right out and I'll tell you I'm a true believer, but I don't believe everything is true.
That's a strong statement, and I'm the same way. I'm about to release some evidence from the Brownsville General Hospital that closed in 1988, and it's not one that's open to just regular investigation. It's an old abandoned building. I just happened to go and investigate it on my own. So if you're hearing me out there, I plead the fifth. But I did some investigating there, and I was getting amazing EVP response or EMF responses. I would ask questions, and it would spike over and over again, almost at will on call every time I asked it a question. Now I'm going to release that evidence, and most would look at that and say that is absolutely phenomenal, and I agree. But will I sit there and say without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that is 100% accurate and that couldn't be power lines somewhere in the distance, that couldn't be cell towers? Absolutely not. I will always go about it with a skeptical mind, but with an open mind that it could be real. And one thing that you said, and I make sure anytime I investigate with anyone, that your cell phones are turned off and they're put together collectively in a bag and they're kept separate from everything, because people don't realize that someone at the other end of the building gets a text message or a phone call. That traveling down the hallway will send your detector off through the roof, and you're like, oh my God, there's a presence with us right now. Meanwhile, it's Susie getting a text from Joe, and you're sitting there thinking you've got a gold mine over here, and it's the person down the hall texting away. Everyone should always turn their cell phones not down, not silent, but turn them off during an investigation, because text message, phone calls will still set off an EMF detector. Even if you have it in airplane mode, it can still set it off. I've proven this. I've shown this in experiments that I've done. So you have to always go about it with a skeptical mind, because it could very well be what it is.
And one thing that I listened to a lecture by someone who designs a lot of equipment. He's commercially designed equipment. He's been on different movies and documentaries and different shows. And he came right out and said, listen, I don't design my equipment to do what it's doing. Sometimes it just does. And, you got to understand that sometimes spirit can manipulate that energy to have it work. But also, you got to be careful, because sometimes these people, it's like working with apps. People go and don't realize that there are microphones in your phone. It could be reading your registry. It could be responding. It could be responding to what you're saying. I did an experiment where I said ghost like 20 times on one of these apps. And out of the 20 times, I got, I think, 3 of the same responses.
Oh yeah, I believe that. I've actually proven
yeah.
that several of the Ghost Box apps. I did an experiment one time. I've proved about 3 of the top Ghost Box applications are absolutely false and fraud, and I've proved it by capturing a series of the same exact answers in certain sequences, proving that it's a giant endless loop. And people are like, oh, it's the realest app I've ever come across. I'm like, yeah, it's actually fake. And it's funny because one of the biggest creators of one of the cleansing boxes that go along with spirit boxes, and he's a YouTube phenomenon, has recently been proved to be an absolute fraud. He's made a great device to clear up your spirit box, and you get very crystal clear answers, and his device is real. It will work if and when you get an actual spirit box answer. But his videos and all his claims on YouTube, which have made him a star, are absolutely 100% fake. And that recently hit behind the scenes within the last year or so, and it's really funny. But you have to be skeptical about a lot of things and know that equipment can pick up things, but there's also a good chance that not everything you're hearing, even though it might seem profound, is necessarily the case.
Exactly. But again, a lot of this isn't designed for the hardcore paranormal investigator.
True.
A lot of what they're using now is for the armchair investigator, people who really just they want it's sort of like fashion. They want the best, they want the newest devices, and they, and if you're going to spend $1,000 on something, which I be honest with you, I have, you want to get results. So sometimes these things are fudged. Now, I will tell you, there's an app out there called Phasmabox, and a good friend of mine, I'm not going to say who his name is, but he's a great friend of mine. He's been on, he was a regular on a couple shows, and I love the guy to death. And he's probably one of the greatest, nicest people that ever came across. And the guy is not going to lie to you. He's positive. He's not going to lie to you. He texted me at 3:00 in the morning. Of course, he's on the West. He was on the West Coast at the time. And he texts me, Tim, he goes, I've just had the most unbelievable thing happen. And I said, well, and I text back, because I thought something happened, maybe he was in an accident or something. And he says, we're on board this battleship, and first thing that comes through is what we thought was gibberish. And one of the volunteers that were on board actually was on board that ship as a young naval sailor in World War II. And he goes, that's not gibberish, that's Japanese. And what had come through was Japanese. There had been the ship had been hit by a kamikaze, but it also held Japanese POWs. So, okay, nobody knows Japanese. This guy apparently recognized some of the words. Okay, could be misinterpretation. Now, my buddy he's a Christian. He is just a wonderful person. And he's probably one of the best investigators I've ever met. He texts me and he says, this is what happened. The question that was asked from somebody, that was on the tour was, well, you believe in God? And he goes, yeah. What is there to do in heaven? So he asked the box. And up until this time, I bought the app to test it. And I don't get full sentences. I get blurbs. I don't get full sentences. He says, I swear to God, he says, what came through was, the answer was hanging with Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And it was a full sentence. You don't get
that's very
that.
rare. Yeah, I've gotten fragments of sentences too. I've gotten 2 words. There's been a few occasions where I've gotten 3 words, though rare.
Right.
But to get a full sentence, that is very, very uncommon.
And he goes, he says, I've worked with so many different apps and I've worked with so many different things. I have never had that happen. He says, I had to text you because I knew you would be the only one that would think this is fascinating, especially because, of his own spirituality. And I was like, wow. I just wrote back going, did you record it? And he goes, yeah. So again, I had to go out and buy it, and I downloaded it on an old computer, an old laptop I had. And again, I don't trust it because it can go and read the some of these things can read your registry. And I turned it on, and I'm just kind of going, hey, anybody there, man? Anybody out there? And it goes, where's Tim?
Wow.
So
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely some realness to some of them, and you have to be careful. But I mean, there are ones out there, and when you do get the evidence that you know without a shadow of a doubt is true and real, that's something that strikes you a certain way. I mean, like something like that, you turn it on and it says your own name, where's Tim, right afterward. You have to say, well, how the hell did that happen? Unless it was real.
It might be in the software to read the registry.
It could be.
So you don't know. So maybe if it wasn't my own laptop, and it said that, I would take that more gospel than, because if, when you register your laptop, of course, you're using your own name.
That is true. And
most of us are, unless you're like in the pornography or something like that.
Yeah.
You're using your own name. So again, it could read the registry. But, it kind of took me back a little bit, but to answer the original question, everything has a purpose. Everything can add into what we do. The personal experience to me far outweighs anything else, because in my book, I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I believe that there's something out there after the change, what we call the change called death. And there are so many different ways of making contact, of testing and doing demonstrations and experiments, that it's all valid in whatever we do. You just don't have to go. Take a little time. A good friend of mine, we use styrofoam cups. We rub it on our arms, put it on the ground, and if we have an energy, something that may walk across the floor, and some kind of energy, all of a sudden that cup will spin. It'll fly across, or styrofoam peanuts. They cost nothing. They cost nothing. Put that in your arsenal. I have a little stand. I put 3 ping pong balls on. Move them. Target objects. Move them. The old days. I had one, like somebody flicked it at me. I had a recorder at a local thing here in Western New York. I was talking into it, doing questions. All of a sudden, the recorder flew off the table. Wow. So you don't have to go and put out huge money, of course, unless you want to, because there's so much other things we can explore. And the more creative we are, the better we are. And I got to tell you, my buddy Joe Piari did this unbelievable experiment. We were at a location, and he had photos of people who lived at the location. And he had a small projector, just one of those little mini projectors. Brought it, and he ran the photos off his phone. And as we were going through the photos, and he was flicking the photos on, we said, let us know if you know anybody. Please do something, and we had different devices and, make a sound, whatever. It got to a past owner of this location. Bang! On the wall. We all jumped. So there's another way. Be creative. I can't stress that enough. Let's not be lemmings here, guys. We're paranormal investigators. We're experimenters. Let's go out there and experiment. Learn everything you can. I mean, I was blessed because I started this stuff at an early age. Before it was like really cool. And, because I mean, I was labeled a freak and a weirdo back in the day. And now it's like, oh, my neighbors think I'm like, wow, I live next to this guy that like does this stuff. They like to tell their friends.
It's really flip-flopped over the years. That's for sure.
Just be experimental, man, get out there and do it, because there's so much that we can do. Be creative. Work within your own sphere of influence. Work within your own religious and spiritual beliefs. Work with it. We're at the cusp. We're just at that cusp of falling off the edge, man. It's like if the earth was flat, we're right at that edge right now to go and see what's on that other side. What's going on? We're going to fly off the edge and into space, and that's going to be like the ultimate experience. Time for people to go out there and just do it. And I can't, I can't stress that enough. Just be creative. Understand it doesn't matter. This isn't competition. I'm not in competition with anybody. Love me, hate me. I still get my pension check every month. That's the way it works.
Well, and you said it. Said it great. That you gotta experiment and do things different and be original. Because if everyone did the exact same experiments, let's look at it from a scientific standpoint. If everyone did the exact same experiment over and over again. You might get varied, data back, but usually it's going to be pretty close to one another. So unless you're coming up with another experiment, you're just recycling the same thing over and over again. So as Tim said, be creative, step outside the box of normal thinking, and do something a little bit radical, a little bit different to get different results, because we are at a pivotal moment right now where we've come so far in paranormal investigations and so far into research from 20, 30 years ago to now, and 30 years from now we're going to be so much further. But there are things that, if you dig into, your own religion, as Tim said, your own personal beliefs, energy work, that you can crack into a world that you don't even realize, exist beyond just ghosts, beyond just spirits. You will start to see a whole different plethora and plane that you didn't know was there. Now, I hate to cut it short, Tim. We are running close on time. If I can give you one last statement or thing to say before we wrap up here, how would you like to close this out?
First off, I really appreciate you guys giving me the time to come on. This has been a huge honor, guys, huge honor. And, and Daniel will tell you, man, I don't like mince words when it comes to that stuff. This was so great. It's so great to be able to go and speak to people who are progressive. And I know that your audience is so progressive. And I'm so happy that people have stuck around and, have listened in. And it's just my hope that people go, and let's take this to the next level. Let's go to, we're still in phase 1 of what we're doing. Let's push this to phase 2 and see where it goes. And the sky's the limit. And remember, here's something that somebody told me a long time ago. Everybody's governed by rules. But who wrote the rule book? Was it you or somebody else? So when you think about it, do you want to be and follow somebody else's, mistakes? Or do you want to forge ahead and make your own mistakes and learn from them and progress that way? So thanks, guys. I really appreciate this.
Oh, no problem, Tim. And the honor was all ours, certainly. And we appreciate you, like I said, taking time out of your busy schedule to come on, kick it with us, and talk over, a bunch of things and talk shop. And, certainly would love to have you again back on the show down the road if you're interested.
Absolutely.
I think we had some great talks.
Fantastic. It was fun. And I'm glad that Daniel James twisted my arm to be on. And next time you get dinner.
I absolutely plan on it very soon. Tim, thank you for your energy and for your friendship.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you. And Daniel, thank you for everything that you've taught me. I'm an old dog, man, and all this stuff is new to me, and it's been a great journey for me. And Dan's been a big part of my journey. And I wouldn't be doing what I do now, and just enjoying it, and then passing it on for not-for-profits, and helping other people get the word out, and senior services and whatever's out there that come to me and I get a chance to work with. So a lot of that, Dan, that's all thanks to you, brother.
Well, thank you for telling me that. I really, really appreciate it.
And to folks listening out there, make sure you pick up Tim's books, read them, listen to the podcasts that he has been on, not only ours tonight that you're listening to, but any other podcast he's been on, including his own podcasting that he's done, because, as Dan said, he was in the pod before the pod was the pod. So make sure you check it out. Check out all the episodes of the paranormal shows he's been on over the years, and just really look into his background. He's a fascinating person, and we're glad to have had him on the show tonight. Make sure you support him, support the show, and check out all of our past episodes. Hit that like, share, and follow button. As we said, that helps us out more than you know. We always have great new entertaining episodes coming for you. My next episode of Celestial Oddities Oddworld is dropping soon. I'm putting that together currently with different phone calls. If you have an experience that you would like to share with us, you can email me at celestialoddities@gmail.com and let me know. I'd be glad to get you on the show. If you have anything you'd like to see us do, see us not do, any ideas in general, feel free to email us. We answer you daily, so you're always made sure that, we keep in contact with you. We have some great stories on this next episode. I have a woman from Zimbabwe who had called in, and she's talking about voodoo witch doctors and shadow people and all kinds of great, wonderful encounters that she had. Maybe not great for her, but great content to listen to, certainly. So, make sure you stick around for that. And other than that, we appreciate your support, and we'll catch you next show. Dan, Tim, it was a pleasure as always, and we will see you guys next time.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one.